3, 2, 1, blast off. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the MSP Chat Podcast, your weekly visit with two talking heads talking with you about the services, strategies, and success tips you need to make it big in managed services. My name is Rich Freeman. I am Chief Analyst at Channel Mastery, the organization responsible for this show. I am joined this week, as I am every week, by your other co-host, our CEO and Chief Strategist at Channel Master. His name is Eric Simpson. Eric, how's it going?
It's going great, Rich. Starting to feel temperatures drop a little bit as we record this. We are in the first week of December, the last week of the last quarter of 2025. And wow, Rich, we just celebrated our 100th episode a little while ago, and we covered a lot of news this year, but we're not done yet, are we?
Not at all. Actually, we've got some stuff to talk about here on this episode. We've got some really great interview guests coming up on this episode of the show. We have an interview recorded actually a few weeks ago at IT Nation Connect, the ConnectWise event, and that is with Corey Nachreiner. He's the Chief Security Officer at WatchGuard. Very interesting conversation coming up. Speaking of ConnectWise, host of IT Nation Connect, we've got the CEO of that company coming on this show in a couple of weeks' time. So lots of good stuff to go here on MSP Chat in 2025.
Yeah, we're going to finish really, really strong. So I'm excited, but I'm really excited to dive into today's episode. So what do you got teed up for us on the news story of the week, Rich?
Well, our news story of the week this time around comes to us from Veeam. Very familiar name, very familiar, widely trusted vendor in the channel. I've written about them a number of times, obviously, in Channelholic, my blog. I've attended some of their events. It's been a little while since I've spoken to them, though. And I made a point of doing that recently because they have announced a couple of different things within the last few weeks that I think tell you a little bit about Veeam and where Veeam is going, but also about where security is going in the world of managed services right now. So most recently, just within the last week or two, as people are getting this episode of the show, Veeam announced the launch of V13, version 13 of the Veeam data platform, which in a lot of ways is entirely consistent with Veeam's heritage, and in some other ways tells you where Veeam has been going, basically. So Veeam is best known as a backup and recovery vendor. That's really kind of where they began. They have broadened into more of a data protection vendor over time, and data protection has come to mean more than backup and recovery, right? And so we've seen Veeam get into incident response, for example, through its acquisition of Coveware. They have, and this is all part of, they've had these capabilities before, but they amplified them, enhanced them in V13 of data platform. They've got anti-ransomware functionality, anti-malware functionality of other kinds. They basically turned what was originally a backup and recovery platform into a true data protection platform in the sense that they're doing both security and backup. So theme number one this ties into that we talk about pretty regularly on MSP Chat is that particularly, not exclusively, but particularly in the world of security, it is all about platforms now. People want to get more functionality with tighter integration from fewer vendors, especially in the world of security, where backup is sort of the last line of defense. It's a layer on the security stack. It's pretty important from an MSP standpoint and an end user standpoint to have all of that coming from one company. And so we've seen Veeam sort of move, and it's taken them, 2-3 years, basically. This is an ongoing campaign. They've turned the meaning of data protection into both backup and security. And they're actually very, they make some pretty big claims about their detection and response capabilities in relation to other companies out there. But it is all still fundamentally about data there. And this brings us to the other recent news story from Veeam. They announced not too long ago that they are acquiring a company called Security AI, SECURITI AI. This was a $1.725 billion acquisition, no joke, but it brings data security posture management into, ultimately, This deal is still pending, I should say. So a lot of what I'm talking about here, I'm sort of reading into things a little bit. I just interviewed them about this yesterday as we're recording, and they were very cagey about what they said because this deal is not done yet and they have to be cautious. But they will, when that deal closes, as it almost certainly will, now have data security posture management, which is something we've talked about on the show. Very important in the age of AI, right? You want to know what data you have and where it is and who's touching it, because that data is AI gold and that makes it a target. But where they're going at Veeam is with the security acquisition is actually even a little bit more interesting than that. Because if you are a data protection company in the age of AI, then you need to be aware not just of what you have and how it's classified and who's touching it, but how people are using it. And you want to have that information in real time. If you've got somebody in ChatGPT leaking confidential information out into the cloud, you want to know about that as it's happening and shut it down. If you've got somebody accessing information via AI that they don't or shouldn't have access to, just within the four walls of your business, because your Copilot implementation is, kind of internally leaky and so on, you want to know about that. There's a whole new set of security challenges around AI that pose risks for end users and are therefore challenges for MSPs. And MSPs are going to need tools that are capable of addressing these challenges. And so Veeam now, in its mission to be the ultimate data protection platform, meaning both security and backup, we are seeing them move that in the direction of AI security. And this is something that I think we're going to see more and more of, Eric. I won't get deep into it, but our company, Channel Mastered, has a client that is building a product, has a product already that addresses this. There are enterprise-oriented solutions out there that are specifically designed to provide AI security and watch what people are prompting and so on. Not a lot of multi-tenant MSP-oriented products. What Veeam is building is headed in that direction. What our client Kipling Secure is building is headed in that direction. We're going to see a lot more of this, I think, going forward.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Rich, and not the first time we've talked about, a backup vendor leveraging the data in different ways that they are backing up for clients. This is definitely something that I also agree that we will see a lot more of. Any vendor that has lots and lots of data is thinking about how to leverage AI for their clients and for adding functionality. And I think I'm gonna see if I can hashtag AI RMM for this particular kind of category. So it's AI remote monitoring and management, because yes, the biggest threat to organizations from a security standpoint is always going to be the users, right? We can secure the perimeter and we can secure the edge and we can secure devices and but we can't secure what the users do. So, and yes, we've talked a lot about this traction that businesses today have towards leveraging AI, and they're just subscribing to these chat solutions, Chat GPT. You've got Perplexity. You've got all these different things the users are bringing in, and that's the one thing that the MSPs are not monitoring and helping manage. So I think there's a huge opportunity for this category in growth. And I think you're right. I think we'll see it accelerate, quickly in 2026. It's an opportunity. So MSPs, perk up. This is another opportunity for you to add value and help secure your clients and bring some governance to the wild, wild west of AI.
Add value, collect a little bit more recurring revenue, and also set the foundation for the AI solutions your customers are going to want your help in building and deploying. You want them to be able to operate those solutions securely, and a big piece of that. Instead of AI RMM, Eric, I'm going to go with AI DR, AI detection and response. You want to know if something insecure around data and AI is happening, detect that, and respond to it in as automated a fashion as possible. So maybe that's the product. We know EDR, we know MDR. Maybe we're coining the phrase AIDR here.
Okay, I'm warming up to it. I like it, Rich. Awesome.
All right. Well, let's move on to your tip of the week here. And we were just kind of talking about we're in the last month of the year. We're headed towards New Year's Day. Here's a good New Year's resolution for the folks in our audience: not lose any clients in 2026. What is your tip of the week, Eric?
Yes, I mean, Rich, as we know, MSPs want to grow their recurring revenues. They're always on the hunt for new client relationships. I mean, that's kind of their focus. And in working with MSPs the way we do at MSP Mastered, we're hearing a lot more about churn. So these MSPs now kind of is the model that is ubiquitous. When I had my MSP practice, we had to call it flat rate IT because, it didn't exist yet. Now, you're looked at strangely, I think, if you're a business owner and in the SMB and don't have some sort of outsourced IT support, and they're typically going to be MSPs, managed service providers. We're seeing the competition there really heat up. I mean, it's very competitive, and the job of our MSP providers today is to distinguish and differentiate themselves and not turn out these customers over time, because it is so competitive now that we're seeing more churn, whether that's self-inflicted or because, we're not keeping up with the needs of our clients. I'm going to tie this tip of the week around building, the tip of the week is building a proactive 2026 customer success and retention engine. But I'm going to tie it back to AI a little bit because, hey, here we are, and we're talking about these new solutions that are coming down the pike, the AIDR, the AI architect, the AI governance, the AI solution provider. So this is a way to add more value. But notwithstanding all that, just some 3 basic things that I think everyone should kind of review at the end of the year. Number 1, these struggles that MSPs have in getting clients to show up for strategic business reviews or QBRs. I want to begin shifting away from QBR and call them strategic business reviews. I've just decided that just now, Rich. We want to add value to those conversations, and it's not a report card that we're kind of letting the client, give us their impression of how good we're doing. This is a way to emphasize outcomes, to emphasize risk, to emphasize operational improvements, risk reduction, the things that we want to talk to the client about to shore up their business so that they can grow without thinking about their technology or thinking about security, and bringing in these new solutions that customers want to talk about, security, AI. We want to shift those QBRs into a more strategically valuable conversation. And I also want to take this moment to dispel the myth that it has to be a quarterly meeting. It doesn't have to be a quarterly meeting. Heck, we had clients where we were meeting with them weekly, Rich, because they were moving so fast and growing so quickly. So if you're doing strategic business reviews, and I want everyone to start calling it, and if it's like and name it what it is for that meeting, it's a strategic AI business review, it's a strategic security business review. Get the client engaged, send an agenda out that says, these are the things we want to talk about. What else do you want to talk about? Let's prepare for this. It's a serious conversation and add more value. And on top of that, we want the client to walk away with some actionable decisions they have to make in order for the MSP to add more value. So not every quarter. You may have clients that you will do one of these once a year, right? So if you think A, B, and C, which I always talk about, Rich, it's like the A clients get the most strategic meetings because they merit it. Your C customers, you may check in with them once a year. Your B clients may be twice a year. It just depends. So don't treat everybody the same. Focus your efforts on the clients that are growing, but don't look past the ones that you're supporting. These are, customer success touches, right? So number 2, identify a way to scorecard your clients all the way through. If you got 100 clients, then you're going to scorecard all of them, and you're going to look for early warning indicators that some of them may be at risk. Maybe they're not responding to your customer satisfaction surveys. Maybe they are, not responding to emails you're sending them out. Maybe they're blowing off some of these strategic business reviews. These kind of, are early warning indicators. When the MSP knows, Rich, that the client is shopping around is when they ask for their passwords and all that, right? So we don't want that to happen. We want to get in front of it. Now, you also want to go through every year and identify those clients that you want to, help find another home so that you can make more room for more of these strategic clients. So there's a risk mitigation, churn mitigation strategy, but there's also I want to, bring some more players on my team to win the championship this year. So that kind of goes hand in hand. Like, I expect some of these clients, maybe that they're not at risk from churning out necessarily, but maybe they just aren't growing. Maybe they aren't saying yes to your cybersecurity bundles, things like that, that makes it harder for you to work with them, and you're not adding as much value to them, and they're probably not paying you, the margin that you would like, because they may be a little bit more cost conscious. So, think about that as well. The end of the year, kind of like, what are my bottom 10% of customers that if I help them find another home, like, you notice I didn't say terminate them, help them find another home, right? And make room for more A&D clients so you can scale without, more profitably without having to hire many more technicians that way. And then finally, a customer success program that really takes into account more specific, granular customer satisfaction surveys. And I know that a lot of the platforms that MSPs use, Rich, are kind of smiley face, sad face at the end of a ticket. You may get, a new client to the users to complete those, in the first 90 days or 6 months or so. But after a while, we hear from partners that, we don't really get that. So, find a platform that allows you to craft very specific questions about the role that each end user plays in that business and what challenges they're having, and get more feedback from them about these pains and challenges. Because the most successful strategic business reviews we used to do, Rich, always included, we did a quarterly custom survey to the end users in our clients' organizations. And then we would sit down at those strategic business reviews and reflect back to the business owner, here's what we're hearing from the users. And in many cases, they weren't aware of some of these things. Oh, really? It takes them 77 clicks to, process an invoice, just like MSPs have the same problem, right? So does everybody else. And that allows us to become more valuable to those clients. And then the last bit to make those activities successful, Rich, is to reflect back to the folks that provided their feedback in the survey and said, hey, thanks for completing the survey. Here's how the folks in your organization responded. Not uniquely identifiable, but on this question, 77% of you answered this, 30% of you answered that way. So now that end user feels like, oh, well, my opinion counts. I'm actually getting something, and let them know, hey, and we will be talking about these results with, your business owner when we come and meet with them. So thank you again. So just a couple of things to help reduce churn, to identify at-risk, potential at-risk clients, and then also to have a strategy for 2026 that says, hey, I'm going to help find homes for these folks so I can make more room for more A and B clients. Or alternatively, I'm not spending enough time with my A clients because I'm dealing with these C customers, and that might free you up to be a lot more strategically valuable to those clients that need your help to grow. Because the last thing we want is a client to leave us, Rich, and say, well, we've outgrown you, right? And that's our fault then.
A few quick thoughts. I like all that advice a lot. One of the things I like about turning a quarterly business review into a strategic business review is it gets people out of that quarterly fixation, as you said. Absolutely. The best MSPs I know will meet with some clients once a year and others twice a year. So stop sort of thinking as a quarterly business review as the ideal or the model. What's important is that it's a business review, and in particular, when you call it a strategic business review, you're putting the spotlight on what is going to be most important in terms of your relationship with the client going forward. As AI automates a lot of the sort of maintenance work that MSPs have historically done, as we've said over and over again on the show, your value add to the client is going to be that strategic technology advisor function. And so this is a strategic business review where we're going to talk about opportunities to get better at that. To the point about AI automating technical work more and more as we go forward. There's at least one big MSP roll-up that I've written about that used AI to automate the service dispatch function and then take the people who were doing that before and turn them into customer success managers. I think by and large, what we're seeing right now in the managed services world is that people are not using all these great new AI tools out there to reduce the number of people they have on the payroll. They're just using those people in different ways. And one of the things AI is going to enable you to do is invest more time and effort and expertise in customer success, so that the AI is going to help you be smarter and dedicate more time and attention to that function. And then AI can also help you with an early warning indicator. There's a solution I think we've talked about on this show before. I don't really know where it is in its rollout phase. It's a brand new AI solution for managed service providers called, or the company that makes it is called Sift, CYFT. But I know one of the things they have on their roadmap is an AI tool that will just be listening and snooping in on every call that every technician has with every customer, listening for early warning indicators of unhappiness and issuing appropriate alerts. So AI is going to make people more effective there. And last quick point is, even without AI, I would think, Eric, you know better than I do, telling your technicians, telling the customer-facing parts of the company, one of the things I want you to do is be my early warning indicator. If you see or hear anything that tells you this client is less than delighted with us, and as Bill Gates once wrote, in a well-run company, bad news travels fast. I want to know right away if there's a problem, and I want you to be my early warning indicator.
Yeah. So a couple of thoughts there on the AI front. I think also we know that there are solutions out there that are built around AI to help prepare for these strategic business reviews as well, gathering all this data that the MSP has on all these different various platforms and kind of putting together, preparing for those strategic. So I definitely forecast that those solutions will mature where you can actually natural language say, hey, I'm having a meeting with so-and-so, and we want to talk about this opportunity, build me an agenda, build me some talking points, just like the stuff we do right now with these chatbots, Rich, but it's gathering that data from that customer. So I think that's going to be super helpful as well, and give these MSPs a much more confident and authoritative approach to having these strategic business reviews that are going to add value for those client relationships. And then, and the last one was when you said, hey, give us, early warning signs. I remember so vividly back in the day with our MSP and me, before I went out to meet a client for a strategic business review or just a client meeting or just a phase review for a project we were in, I'd stop by, the service desk, and I'd ask him, I'd say, hey guys, I'm going out to meet clients so-and-so. Is there anything I need to know about before? Because I've walked into, a landmine, when I get there, and it's like, well, we've had this ticket open for saying it. I'm like, oh my goodness. And then, okay, let me go deal with that. We'll reschedule this meeting. Let me make sure that we take care of that for you right now. So, having the assistance of AI and the team to be aware and in tune, to give us that, the early warning system that you coined there, I think is super valuable.
Yeah, running an organization where the left hand knows what the right hand is doing and vice versa is a real customer retention driver. So yeah, good final tip there. Well, enough of us. Let's move on to our interview segment. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will be joined by Corey Nachreiner, the Chief Security Officer at WatchGuard, in a conversation that we recorded at ConnectWise IT Nation Connect about a month ago. As we're recording this episode right now, we had so many great conversations that show, we're still kind of working our way through some of them. Lots of good stuff coming from Corey, so stick around. We're going to be right back. And welcome back to part 2 of this episode of the MSP Chat Podcast, where once again we are coming to you live from ConnectWise IT Nation Connect 2025 in Orlando, Florida. And this time we are pleased to be joined by Corey Nachreiner. He is the Chief Security Officer at WatchGuard. Corey, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Rich. It's a pleasure to be back with you.
We've known each other for quite a while.
Yeah.
For folks in the audience who don't know you, or who knows, don't know WatchGuard, give them a little background.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm Corey Nachreiner, the CISO of WatchGuard Technologies. Been there for a long time, previously the CTO. We're a company that focuses on bringing enterprise-grade security to the mid-market through MSPs. We've always lived and breathed through channel, and the MSPs are the channel that we think really hit that mid-market and SMB. Like, we're never going to be trying to directly sell to them because they go to MSPs for their IT and security services. So I mentioned just cybersecurity. We started with a network security pedigree, so we're well known for fireboxes, whether that be hardware, software, cloud-based firewalls. But we've expanded hugely in the past 10 years. So now we have a full endpoint security suite, full identity MFA suites. We have new SASE products that have come out, NDR products. So most of the cybersecurity needs of any SMB or MSP providing to them, we can serve that in our platform.
So these conversations are normally not news conversations, and by the time this show airs, this will be old news. But I got to ask, because as of like 2 days ago, you guys have a new CEO.
Yeah.
So tell folks, who that is and what that means for your partners.
Yeah, so that's Joe Smolorski. We're very happy to have a CEO, although we're happy with Vats, who was the interim CEO from our board organization. He did a lot to help continue to grow us with a fantastic Q3. But Joe has just joined us, and he's previously known from the last 7.5 years from being from Kaseya. And I think the best way WatchGuard is looking to grow. We want to continue to help the MSP market and MSPs grow. And if I were to talk about him, I think what he did at Kaseya in the 7.5 years he is there, I think he took it from $150 million in revenue to $1.5 billion. And they went from a valuation of $1 billion to 15 times, $15 billion. So very good growth. So happy to know him. Obviously, Kaseya knows the channel like ConnectWise. Kind of weird talking about Kaseya at the ConnectWise event. And by the way, we support ConnectWise Manage and Autotask PSAs and Halo as well. But yeah, very happy to have him.
So Corey, as long as we're talking about news this week from WatchGuard, tell us about the integration news you announced on Tuesday.
So we're talking about WatchGuard Cloud PSA. So yes, WatchGuard, we work with MSPs. We know the tools they use, and we know the PSA and even the RMMs are super important to them. So we've always had integration for a while with the Firebox, the network security appliance directly. But what we announced is it's now in WatchGuard Cloud for all of our platform, whether that be identity, endpoint, network, all of it's in there in WatchGuard Cloud. And the integration is a very deep integration. Like, we know how much all these MSPs rely on ConnectWise. So it's not just basic things for management or opening tickets, but it's a full closed loop ticketing system. So why is that important? We want to save them time and money. So we can automate opening tickets, say if a network interface goes down. You want to know that, we'll open a ticket. But what if it was an anomaly and it comes back 5 minutes later? We don't want to waste your tech's time. We will close the ticket too. That's just one example. It also automates asset management, licensing. So the important thing of knowing what licenses and when the renewals are for your customers so you can get that reoccurring monthly revenue is also important. All of that's connected through the PSA system as well. So, and as I mentioned before, not just ConnectWise Manage, but also Autotask PSA and Halo PSA as well. Yeah.
So, obviously for like multiple years now at this point, there has been a ton of talk about AI in security.
Absolutely.
Every security vendor out there has felt compelled to do something involving AI. And sometimes from my perch in the media, it feels a little bit like checking off a checkbox. We're there too.
That's the word bingo.
Yeah. So from your perspective, what does meaningful AI innovation in security look like?
Well, the reality is if you haven't been doing this for 12 years, are you really doing it? We talk about AI as a buzzword, as something that's really happened the past 3 years, maybe really taken off the last 2 years, but it's been the backbone of cybersecurity for a long time. And WatchGuard had some internally, and some of this we've gotten mature from acquisitions. But let's take Panda Security. That's the endpoint company we acquired to get WatchGuard's advanced EPDR. They have been doing machine learning-based detection for malware for 12 years. So it's not new to them. It's a very meaningful part of our product. It's the reason we have our zero trust application service. One of the reasons, like, AI is not just a buzzword, it works. My favorite anecdote about how great machine learning was at proactively catching new malware is Panda as a company around 13 years ago noticed that even though they sold security anti-malware software, every quarter or so, about 220 customers running their software would get infected by malware. That's like embarrassing, right? You sell anti-malware, but you're still taking support cases where your customers get hit by malware. And to them, they wanted to fix that. And that's when they started 12 years ago to do this machine learning thing. The result is all kinds of crazy, like we say AI, but it's really in like 70 different ML models. It's really a long data science, a long process of doing this. But within the first 2 years of them starting their ML process over a decade ago, their support cases dropped to just tens. And then over the rest of the 10 years, we just don't get calls. If people are using our locked mode, which includes file submission to the cloud that has very quick AI analysis, it works. So yeah, AI is used a lot for a buzzword. So I recommend customers dig into how long have you been doing this, and do they know the difference between AI? It's all machine learning based. It's not really that new. It's just a new buzzword in my opinion. And we have a lot of that data science at WatchGuard that has been very mature.
It kind of reminds me, Corey, in another lifetime, we were one of the first MSPs in the industry. And in fact, we were so early that we called our services flat rate IT.
Flat rate IT.
Because we had been doing it, and then it's MSP. So it kind of reminds me of what you just described. Well, we've been doing it for 12 years. It's machine learning, and now we are able to capitalize on that.
Yes.
Right, and deliver services for MSPs. So I'm going to ask you a different kind of an AI question, because you know what? It wouldn't be a conversation if we didn't talk about AI these days.
Absolutely.
So what role do you see agentic AI playing kind of today and in the future? Like, we're having a lot of these agentic AI discussions.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
By the way, it's going to be one of our predictions for the next year, is that there's going to be a breach where it's a fully autonomous agentic AI that does the entire kill chain. The beginning's not autonomous. There's still going to be a human threat actor picking a subject. But everything from the recon to enumerating all the identities you want to learn about, to exploiting weakness, to AI-based tool creation, making the malware, to lateral movement internally. We have all the individual pieces in different AI tools that can do all that. And agentic is just a fancy word for connecting LLMs and other AI things to being able to connect to all the network and different services we use as humans. We're basically giving them the keys to have the power to any API out there. You can now just do it. Instead of just telling me what to do, you can do it for me. And so now that AI has all the tools to research quicker and better than a human can, write a better spear phishing email than a human can, code malware quicker and better than many of the non-technical humans can, it's all going to be automated. So agentic is one of those things where you can only fight fire with fire. Agentic AI is cool because giving it that connection, agentic is just APIs and connections to other things, is going to be powerful for us as security defenders. It's going to allow us to automate our SOCs. It's going to allow us to automate IT. But the same power we get from it, threat actors get from it. So I think we're going to start the agentic AI cyber war starting next year. And this whole idea of machine against machine being what cyber turns into is going to start happening. Not like in the Terminator kill each other way, but in the finding and defending vulnerabilities way.
Well, that's what I was hearing in the back of my brain. I was hearing, dun, 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 dun.
Yes.
So we are going to be fighting Skynet.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, if you follow security researchers, they're always ahead of the game, but it takes a while for people to believe them. In 2014, DARPA funded the Grand Cyber Challenge. It was a DEF CON challenge where they got a bunch of universities to create AI servers. They all were given a bunch of network services, the same thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they're like, okay, each of you universities, your AI has to automatically find vulnerabilities in their stuff and attack them, while also finding vulnerabilities in your stuff and patch it.
Right.
And they did both. And the best AI model won, but it proved that both on the auto defense and the auto attack thing, it's already been happening, and people are just catching up with the technology. And now when the threat actors get their hands on it, you better have AI as a defense when that happens.
It's the updated version of that old movie Wargames. It's now Cyber.
Oh, yes.
Remember?
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of the sad,
Edging us both by saying that, right?
By the way, one of my that is my hacker original. A lot of people pick hackers, but Wargames. I had a 300 baud coupler modem, just like Matthew Broderick, and while I wasn't war dialing to get into nuclear defense, in my local neighborhood, I wanted to find every BBS, so I certainly war dialed. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So you were looking down the road for us at something, some threat activity we can anticipate in 2026 that's AI powered. But looking at where we are today, I'm curious, just over the course, like over the last kind of 12 months, what kind of threat activity has AI been adding to the picture?
One of the things that, 2 years ago felt like it may be a little silly, we would tell people deepfakes are going to allow people to become your CFO or become your voice on the phone. And they're like, yeah, technically it's theoretically possible, but are they going to really weaponize? Yes. One, the deepfakes, 2 years ago, we were watching deepfakes where people had 6 fingers. And now in a year, the one thing we have to worry about all of this AI is the evolution of the technology is going to be so short. Like if you think of the internet, which seemed, we've had it for 40, 50 years. If you include ARPANET, that's in human span, that's a short amount of time, but that's 50 years it took to evolve. AI is evolving every month faster than we can keep up. So deepfakes are now very, very convincing, and they're already weaponizing them. There's 2 cases I can think of. One was a Hong Kong-based organization where they started getting an accountant, someone in finance got an email from their CFO. And by the way, right when they got his email from the CFO, apparently this accountant was properly suspicious. Because for the normal email thing, we know that maybe that's not my CFO. But instead of trying to weirdly get him to do an account transfer, he said, will you join me on our Teams video? I don't know if it was Teams or Slack, but on a video call to talk to me. And he got on a video call, and his CFO and a couple of other executives were there on video, according to him, telling him about this account transfer he should.
Deep faking on video.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They were masquerading.
Yeah.
And by the way, there's real-time tools now where you can literally press a button and you're Mark Zuckerberg.
Right.
And so they actually used the technology and they transferred, I think it was 25 million Singapore dollars from this Hong Kong location. A similar situation happened in the UK for about 220,000 pounds, but they're using it all the time. They're using audio already for phishing. So, a year ago we were talking about this will probably happen, but with the technology, it didn't seem like it may take a while for them to really weaponize it. One of the predictions we have is deepfake audio and video is going to be the norm in phishing and scams now. It's going to be used a lot.
I've seen some examples and I'm blown away. And to me, it's like, it's just a couple of years ago when, the iPhone and Android started releasing like your little fake avatars that you had a little in your face. And
now it's just a little emoji.
Yeah, a little emoji, a little dragon or whatever. And now they're
cute.
Basically having people transfer money because they're having a conversation that is so realistic that, the victim cannot tell what's going on.
I might have told Rich this story before, but Mark LaLiberty he's kind of my right-hand person. He's the director of our SOC and someone I've worked with and spoke with for a long time. A good guy hacker as well. And as an experiment, we run a podcast as well. So he certainly has audio from me. he did a thing where he created a piece of audio that basically, at the time we had a different CEO, Prakash Panjwani, and he created audio saying, hey, this is Corey Prakash. I want to resign as CTO and you should make Mark the CTO. And by the way, I also want to give all my Lego sets to Mark. And to me, like, it sounded like me saying that.
Isn't that insane?
And it cost
It fools-
$5 in simple tools.
It fools you, and it's
Yeah.
your voice. That's nuts.
No.
So, yes, obviously AI is going to be the number one threat, moving forward in terms of, hacking and ransomware and all these things that MSPs have to guard against. But other than AI, kind of from where you're sitting, what other big changes in security kind of happened this year that kind of stand out to you?
I think this year and next year we're finally, especially like MSPs mostly probably take care of SMB in the mid-market. Enterprise tends to not outsource as much. So they're zero trust, something that has been around for a bit. By the way, zero trust is another one of those, buzzwords where, to me, zero trust is the least privileged principle finally being adopted properly. But zero trust, we've been talking about in security for maybe under a decade, but right around there, it's not heavily adopted. But I think this is the year that SMBs really start to operationalize it. I think between the technology has become easy enough that it's not quite as complex to handle hybrid networks in very convenient ways and make sure individual access to tools based on this continuous validation of who you are is much easier now. But I also think it's because there's so many hacks that have proven that usually the attack is somehow already coming from the inside with a person you know. So zero trust will definitely be operationalized in 2026 and is already starting this year.
And is it taking this long simply because we're now getting more of a handle on like all these cloud and SaaS applications as well? Because of, everything's moved from the premise to the cloud. All the data goes back and forth.
I think we have acronyms like SASE, and not to hammer Gartner, but if you think about SASE, Secure Access Service Edge, do you intuitively know what that means? I never did. But when you think about what you were talking about, what every MSP out there knows is I still will have a perimeter. There's still an Office as a perimeter, but that's just one tiny thing. Half my applications are in Azure and AWS. I'm using SaaS applications like M365, which I have total different control of. Mm-hmm. Remote work is not the exception, it's the rule now. So yes, this hybrid network where all of those things need the same general security policy, but they're total different paradigms of operation. And in the past, how do you manage that? You have to get 4 or 5 different tools and have different policies set up on all of them. So I think we finally, people understand the zero trust message and kind of get what SASE, that need, SASE is a bad acronym, but that need, what it describes, is a very important need. And like I said, I think early things as far as firewall as a service and ZTNA might have been hard to install. But platform companies like us we started with perimeter, so we already have perimeter protections. Now we have cloud protections. Now we have M365. Rather than them having the piecemeal security for all of those, we have it in one platform. So when we add ZTNA and firewall as a service, it's easiest for us to take our cloud platform and auto-configure that for them rather than have them set up different VMs in different places. So I think we've simplified it, and I think at the beginning, it took a while for them to really push the message of SASE. I remember when SASE first came out as a term, most people didn't know what it was. But if you talk to them about the hybrid issue, they knew exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, you weren't calling somebody a smartass when you said SASE, right?
Yeah. I'm being a little sassy by saying Gartner's SASE acronym is not very good. And not as intuitive. It's the proper idea. Their idea is exactly on, but I don't know why they picked that. Service, yeah. Anyways, sorry. Hopefully Gartner doesn't kill me.
Yeah, they don't listen to it. We're good. We're good. You can say anything you want about it. Well, you've already given us a few examples. I mean, no kidding. It's a highlight of the holiday season for me every year when the WatchGuard security predictions list comes out.
Thank you.
You've given us a few already, and you mentioned off the air before, this is work in progress. We're recording in November.
Yeah.
but go ahead, hit me. What are some security predictions for 26?
So one other area we're looking at that, it's we're trying to add to the prediction to also make it new because it's clearly happening, but we've been talking about software or digital supply chain attacks growing and becoming the target. I think 2025 has really set up 2026 for the year where the primary way that attackers are doing software supply chain attacks will be through open source repositories. So through 2025, just so I'm sure your community knows, a software supply chain attack means you're using hundreds of vendors. Maybe you have you've built up very good security for your organization, but you've also brought in different technologies inside your perimeter or inside your hybrid network to do things for you because you've given them trust. But if they have some sort of vulnerability, suddenly, despite all your security, that's the weak link that gets people inside your network. The common example is, of course, SolarWinds, the Orion product, fantastic product. A lot of MSPs and IT practitioners used it, but unfortunately, when it was Trojanized, that hurt people that used it. In 2025, there's been we know attackers are using this to get into many big companies. From an attacker's threat point, if you can find a very popular service or application that people use, and that becomes something you can Trojanize, you're going to get a ton of victims. And lately, they've been going after different well-known legitimate open source repositories. NPM, is a popular way to get Python packages if you're a Linux user. It's had 3 different situations all in the year where many of its packages were basically booby-trapped with malware.
Payloads.
Yeah. PyPy, another place where you can get Python libraries, the same thing. And then we have older cases which were one-off open source cases like, what was the compression, XYUtils. No one I knew, even technical people, knew what XYUtils is, but it's just a compression library that every Linux distro uses. It's like the most ubiquitous thing out there, even though no one knew its name. A Chinese threat actor spent 5 years in a long con to become one of the developers that open source group accepted as a legit developer.
Wow.
And then they booby-trapped it with a OpenSSL backdoor. So that was the old way of doing it, was that long con. Now they're finding ways to infect lots and lots of applications in things like NPM. And that's been successful for them over and over. So we think threat actors are going to target. There's many different places, where open source, legitimate, like the well-known, where you would go to get the official package repositories exist. We think threat actors are going to use that in supply chain attacks in 2026. And if you think about it, I'm talking Linux, and I'm sure the MSPs, they're actual people use Windows computers, but every IoT device, every networking device, there are so many devices that are sitting in your office that IoT or OT device is just the Linux platform. And even though it has some proprietary company software on it, 75% of it is just open source packages to do the basics. So if you think about if those developers are just grabbing those packages, suddenly their product becomes Trojanized in these attacks. So yeah, expect software supply chain attacks through open source libraries next year.
So thinking ahead, 2026, from an MSP's point of view, because, we've put the fear of God in them now.
Oh, sorry.
So, now
they can fix it, though. We're frontline of defense.
We're recruiting them to, to guard against Skynet. Give me 3 things that an MSP should be actively thinking about and taking action to prepare for this next evolution of, defense against these threat actors for themselves, supply chain, and their customers. 3.
Gotcha. So for themselves, they should be, following the same security practice they try to give their customers. And one of the things to do is put MFA on all your remote access. There have been many situations where, I love MSPs. They're usually way smarter than customers as far as security, but it turns out that it was an MSP that got a lot of their customers infected because, for instance, they were using a security product of some sort to do remote access. one of their credentials got stolen in some way, like a phishing attack, and if they didn't use MFA or didn't protect the management interface, the attacker used their own security tool to push ransomware out into the product.
Yeah, sometimes they forget that they are also part of that supply chain.
They're absolutely a part of the supply chain. So make sure to use those practices. And to me, MFA is a big one. If you think about it, MSP, it's almost always remote management by definition. I mean, yes, they will go on site often, but to monitor constantly, you have to, you have to have remote access.
Right.
But that's why they need that to be super secure. So find ways to secure it. The number one tip, the easy one, is just MFA those logins. Even if the login is exposed to the internet, which, by the way, you shouldn't do either, at least if it's MFA'd and the credential leaks, you're going to be somewhat protected. Next thing, though, is don't expose management interface directly. You should have a secure connection. And in the past, I would say VPN, right? Here's the new tip. You need to start transitioning from VPN to ZTNA. I'm a company that has products that are IPsec, SSL VPN. They're useful tools. They have security. But those technologies expose a port that you have to expose everywhere because you don't know where your remote technician is going to be. So you can't just limit the access control list. You have to say everyone can get to this portal to at least attempt to log in.
That port 3389 is that?
Yeah, is that, or is that's for RDP, for instance?
Yeah.
But it could be 443 or 8443 for SSL VPN.
Yep,
it could be IPsec portal for the login.
Yep.
The issue is because you don't know where remote people are coming from, you expose a portal. One, that exposes the authentication possibility if you don't have MFA. But two, even security vendors like us will have vulnerabilities. If there's ever a vulnerability in there, that's attack surface a guy could could use to get into your network. One of the beauties, besides all the zero trust access and the individual continuous validation of users, one of the simple things that ZTNA offers is it's no longer your firewall gateway or your gateway exposing a port to the world. It's a cloud-hosted service that is taking outgoing connections from your remote and outgoing connection from the firewall and connecting it.
Right.
The cloud becomes the connection point for that. So as long as the vendor's cloud POP, and by the way, we're putting all our investment in securing our POP against these attacks, as long as we're doing things securely, you don't have to worry about an attacker doing some vulnerability on your infrastructure to get in. So ZTNA is just a more secure way to do remote access. And if you're doing management, make sure ZTNA is the first barrier before you offer the remote access or the remote management to your other users.
And generally, it's easier to use than old VPNs, especially when you're managing all these remote, user workloads and all that. Yeah.
The beauty with ZTNA is because we know one day you might be connecting to this office, one day you might be connected. There's no concept of logging on every morning. It's just on as long as you don't turn it off. And when you open your laptop, you can get to all these places. You're not going to an IP address and logging in. You've logged in already to the computer, so we know and we give you access to the resources that you're allowed. So it's very easy to use. And it's now easier to set up, too, with platform companies like ours.
All right, so that's two. Bring us home.
So for software supply chain attacks, I think you definitely need to focus on third-party risk management as an MSP when you select your vendors, just the same way end users do. We're the situation, your vendors hopefully are trustworthy and have good intentions, but intentions aren't enough. You should push back, and when you pick a vendor, it shouldn't just be on how easy the product is, but what is your security practice, WatchGuard? How often do you patch? What is your secure software development lifecycle? Do you have a static analysis testing before you release a product? Are you doing all the things you should to secure yourself? So make sure that third-party validation is part of the buying decision when you're picking what to use in your tech stack. And I think the main takeaway, there's all kinds of detail on what to look for, but the main thing is you're going to find some vendors who will be like, dude, I'm glad you asked. I have a trust center. One, I have these 3 compliances, and if you know about these compliances, I have to do all of this best practice in order to get a PCI SAC-D level of compliance. So that's a shortcut to knowing I'm good. But also I have a trust center where I'm going to give you my SLAs for everything. I have a PCERT page, a product security incident response page, where I'm going to transparently talk about vulnerabilities and make sure you patch, they'll be happy to answer your questions and proud of it. Whereas you find other vendors are like, I'm going to have to talk to engineering. I'm not quite sure yet. And that doesn't mean it's bad, but it's certainly not at the maturity level that they know exactly how serious they take security. So really, it comes down to the supply chain of we're all partners with each other. A rising tide is going to affect all boats as well as a lowering tide. And the vendors that you should pick are the ones that are trying to rise the tide of security for everyone. And you should do that for all your partners.
Do you have or know of like a good list of those questions to ask? Or
there's something called the SIG questionnaire. I wouldn't recommend sending someone the full SIG questionnaire, which is 1,024 some questions. But the SIG is a standardized set of security questions. So the way we do it at WatchGuard is, for the mature companies, we don't want them to have to fill out a super questionnaire. So the first thing is we ask if you have compliance. If you have a certification like ISO 27001, a PCI, or some sort of SOC 2, a Type 2 certification, everyone knows what the requirements of best practice are. So right away, they're meeting a base set of security controls and requirements that, frankly, many companies don't live up to. So the shortcut is to find that, and then you may not have to ask questions. If they don't have that, go to SIG. They have different levels of questionnaire. And we don't want to, when we're doing our security validation, our first thought is, how much data am I sharing with you? How much access am I giving you to my network or my data? And how critical is that data? So if it's some sort of vendor that I don't know is not going to have access to our most sensitive data, we may just send the basic SIG one and not worry about the risk of that vendor. But if, on the other hand, we know, like literally, if you hack their network, they're going to be in a core part of our service, then we might make sure they have certification and send one of the biggers. But just look up SIG questionnaire, SIG, and you'll find some easy security questions.
All right. Well, Corey Nachreiner, thank you so much for taking time out of the show here to join us on MSP Chat.
Yeah, absolutely a pleasure, Rich. Yeah, it was great to be with you.
For folks in the audience who would like to follow up with you, learn more about WatchGuard, where should they go?
I feel like if you just go to secplicity.org, it will take you to our thought leadership blog, which is not about product. It'll give you an introduction to me and my team talking about general security. And we also have a 443 podcast on that blog, so that will get to know us. And because it's on the WatchGuard site, if you're interested in product after that, you learn something or you have a need, you'll find links to our site through secplicity.org.
We'll link to that in the show notes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the podcast as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, once again, thank you very much for joining us. Folks, Eric and I are going to take a break here. When we come back on the other side, we're going to chat a little bit more about this conversation with Corey Nachreiner, have a little fun, wrap up the show. Stick around, and be right back. And welcome back to part 3 of this episode of the MSP Chat podcast. And once again, we thank Corey Nachreiner for joining us at the IG Nation Connect event, where he, like everyone else there, was on the run and very busy. We appreciate him taking some time out to speak with them. It's an interesting thing. So I always look forward to WatchGuard's predictions for the next year, because Corey kind of drives the creation of those, and he's always got the most interesting list of pretty much any vendor out there. So it was good to get a very early preview of him, of some things to look for in 2026. And it was really interesting, Eric, because we recorded that interview, I want to say on November 7th, and almost exactly a week later. So one of the things he says in that interview is in 2026, you're going to see the first hack in which AI does the entire thing end to end, the entire kill chain. It's going to identify the vulnerability, plot around it, execute, etc. I think it was 7 or 8 days after we record that interview, Anthropic publishes some research about something very, very similar. Not precisely like what Corey was talking about, but very close. And so it tells you both the kind of foresight Corey has in the realm of security and how quickly things are moving in the age of AI, that before we even got to 2026, that kind of thing was already happening. So we'll see how much worse that kind of thing gets in terms of the speed with which attacks happen and the creativity exhibited by AI in designing and executing them.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think you and I have joked about that old sci-fi movie, the Colossus, the Foreman Project, where these two supercomputers are waging war against each other because, humanity is no longer relevant. I think that trope has been played out, ever since in every sci-fi movie where, AI and Skynet takes over. But yeah, it's scary to think that, we measly humans have to, figure out ways to combat AI and build smarter AI to combat the it's a ping pong game, right? The other AI and this AI, and yeah, brave new world, Rich.
Indeed, indeed. And that leaves us, folks, with time for just one last thing. And you'll remember on the previous episode of the show, previous episode, or maybe the one before that, when we were sharing our one last thing with you, it was about a parrot that had gotten into a coffee shop and it was stealing the coffee. So it turns out animals like coffee as much as people do, certainly as much as I do. And, I like a nice drink now and again, Eric, too. I do know my limit as well. And this week, we have a story about an animal that did not know its limit. We are recording here just days after Thanksgiving, and over the Thanksgiving weekend, a raccoon in Ashland, Virginia, broke into a liquor store, started smashing up some of the bottles on the bottom shelf there, and had a little too much, tied one on, I think you would say, did not know his or her limit, and was found there, just spread eagle on the ground, drunk as, I won't say drunk as a skunk, drunk as a raccoon, basically, when employees came back to the store. So yeah, just because you have access to a shelf full of alcohol, folks, moderation, everything in moderation, even if you're a raccoon.
And Rich, we have to post the link to the article because the photo of the raccoon on the bathroom floor, just face down, spread eagle, it's classic. And two thoughts, right? Stay away from the bottom shelf stuff. If you're gonna clean out a shelf of liquor, get to the top shelf stuff if you're gonna do that kind of stuff. And then again, Rocky Raccoon the mixologist for this episode of the MSP Chat podcast. Know your limits. And I know that the story ends with, they called animal control. They took him to the vet. The vet said, okay, he's fine. Nothing wrong with him, except probably for a massive raccoon-sized hangover.
Absolutely. Yeah, Rocky the mixologist hadn't occurred to me until now, but probably one of the mistakes Rocky made was mixing spirits, which we all know not to do. And yeah, drinking whatever was at hand. So lesson learned the hard way for Rocky Raccoon. And folks, that is all the time we've got for you on this episode of the show. We thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back in a week's time with another episode for you. Until then, we will simply remind you this is both a video and an audio podcast, which means that if you are listening to us right now, but you'd like to check us out on video, you can go to YouTube, look up MSP Chat. If you are watching us on YouTube, but you want to check us out on audio because you're into audio podcasts, go to Google, Apple, Spotify, wherever it is you get your audio podcast. You'll probably find us there. And wherever it is that you find us, please subscribe, rate, review. It's going to help other people find the show and enjoy it just like you do. This show is produced by the great Russ Johns. It is edited by the great Riley Simpson. They're part of the team with us here at Channel Mastered, ready, willing, and able to create a podcast for you. But podcasts are really just the tiniest sliver of what we do for our clients at Channel Mastered, where our mission is to help vendors build and perfect MSP channels. You can learn all about that at our website, www.channelmastered.com. Channel Mastered has a sister organization called MSP Mastered. That's Eric working one-on-one with MSPs to help them grow and optimize their business. You can learn more about that at www.mspmastered.com. So once again, thank you for joining us. We'll see you in a week. Until then, we will simply remind you that you can't spell channel without MSP.